the DEFCON Warning System. I am Tom Lonelywolf. I'm the director of the DEFCON Warning System. It's been a long time since we've done one of these, so pardon me if I'm a little out of sorts. I am not a media guy, so this is why I kind of don't do these. I did a radio interview, and the producer actually warned the host that he is not a media guy. But he also said when he gets talking, he really does know what he's talking about. So that was a nice compliment. But it's definitely true. I'm not a media guy, so I kind of shy away from doing these sort of things. Okay, I tend to throw that disclaimer in every time I do this, just because I'm not looking at the camera. I'm kind of looking down and everything like that. So pardon me if this doesn't look very professional. But the reason we wanted to do this is because there was a lot of controversy over our decision recently to raise the DEFCON level to yellow, and it kind of hit us. That controversy kind of caught us by surprise, because once we raised the DEFCON level, about an hour later, we put out an update detailing our reasons why we raised the DEFCON level, and we did that again this time, and there's still a lot of controversy, a lot of discussion, a lot of debate, a lot of mockery as to why we raised the DEFCON level. We were playing into Russia's hands. We were paranoid. We were doom porn, war porn. We don't know what we're talking about. This, that, and the other thing. We got dumped on an awful lot, which is kind of strange, because before we raised the DEFCON level, we were being roundly criticized and harangued and everything else for not raising the DEFCON level, because we were underplaying it. We were catering to the U.S. government not to raise the panic level or anything like that, or we were playing into somebody's hands by not really telling people that there's a possibility of war and stuff like that. And it's like we can't please anybody, it seems. No matter what we do, it's always going to be wrong. We don't raise the DEFCON level and we get yelled at. We raise the DEFCON level and we get yelled at. So I don't know. It's frustrating, but I don't want to dump my frustrations on you. That's not why we're here. We're to discuss why we raised the DEFCON level. We did find an interesting statistic, because like I said, we put a we put a statement out as to why we raised the DEFCON level, and according to Twitter statistics, now this is just on Twitter. We put our DEFCON level notices out elsewhere as well, but this is just on Twitter because these are easy statistics to pull up. Over 1 million people saw that we raised the DEFCON level. Over 1 million people saw that we said DEFCON 3. Okay, out of that 1 million people, 12,000 actually read our statement as to why we raised the DEFCON level. So we have a ton of people out there complaining that we raised the DEFCON level, say we didn't tell them why, we were being obscure, what were our reasons, why did we do this, we really don't know what we're talking about, why are we hiding something like this, we don't know what we're doing because we didn't say why, and all sorts of really stupid comments, when I know that was not very, public relations for me to say stupid, but they were stupid because we told people why, and only 12,000 out of 1 million actually bothered to read why we did this. So, pardon me if I'm a little frustrated. So why did we raise the DEFCON level? Because when Russia first invaded Ukraine, we went to 4 and then we went to 3. And it really wasn't because of Russia invading Ukraine. What concerned us back then was not the threats that Russia was making, but how the West was interpreting those threats and how the West might respond to those threats. Because nuclear war is never just one side saying, okay, we're going to go to war and we're going to nuke you. It's always a ladder up. And in this case, it was always, what was the West going to do? No, how was Russia invades, how was the West going to respond? And how was Russia going to respond to that response? And how was the West going to respond to that response? You see, it's a cascading kind of flow of events. And that's what was kind of worrying us. The statements that were coming out of the West were concerning enough to say that if they follow through with any of this, and then Russia is going to respond, and then the West is going to have to respond, it's going to just cascade out of control. And so that's what got us all kinds of nervous. Fortunately, it didn't pan out that way, and we were able to start dialing back down as Russia settled into the war. The West kind of settled into, oh, right, okay, Russia is in this war. They're going to support Ukraine, but they're only going to go so far. The United States said they're not going to put boots on the ground in Ukraine because they did not want to fight Russians. So now Russia looks at the weapons that are being sent into Ukraine, and they're saying that the West is kind of holding this proxy war by supporting Ukraine and sending these and continually arming Ukraine and sending these mercenaries over there. The West, as far as I know, they're not conscripting mercenaries to go over to Ukraine. These mercenaries are going over voluntarily, unlike Russia, which is actually conscripting people to go into Ukraine. Although I was about to say that there are some mercenaries going over, but generally speaking, these are conscripted mercenaries, even from foreign agents, because they are part of these other groups. There really isn't anybody volunteering to go over and fight on Russia's side. So, but anyway, all that kind of settled down, and we even went back to level green because it was all just. It's just going to be a nice little conventional war. Russia keeps making these nuclear threats, but nobody really took them seriously. There was no real strategic advantage to firing off a nuke in Ukraine. Tactical nuclear weapons, they really don't have that much of a tactical advantage. A strategic advantage. Tactically, you got to have like a bunch of troops massed together for a tactical weapon to be of any use, unless you're going to create a corridor that you don't want anybody going through, so you'll nuke it and irradiate it. But generally, tactical nuclear weapons are used on massive armies, and Ukraine doesn't have a massive army. What they've done is they've kind of like spread their forces out, so tactical weapons aren't really that valuable. Although when Ukraine masses to take a certain area back, there you've got an area that could be used, like that tactical weapon could be used. But even then, they're not using that many forces, so I don't know if a tactical weapon will ever be advantageous in the Ukraine war until Ukraine starts to take back Crimea, if they ever decide to do that. They may not be as interested in defending Donetsk and those other recently captured and annexed areas with nuclear weapons, but sure as heck, they're going to defend Crimea because they want that warm water port. There's just no question about that. They've always wanted it. They've had it for a really long time. They're not giving it up. They are going to defend that with nuclear weapons, guaranteed. So when Ukraine starts moving the Crimea area, that's when things are going to start to get nervous. And if we're ever back down to green, if Ukraine goes into Crimea, expect us to go up to blue. If Ukraine starts making some really good headway in Crimea, expect us to go to yellow. And, as much as I don't like to say this, we have actually talked about the conditions for going to orange over this, because, that Crimea situation is really nerve-wracking. So as long as Ukraine stays out of that, I'm not terribly worried about a nuclear bomb, but that kind of segues really nicely into what's going on now. Why did we go to yellow? And Russia has been making a lot of statements about nuclear weapons, like I said, and now they've moved away from small tactical weapons. Now they're complaining about Ukraine possibly using a dirty bomb. Now, dirty bombs, I kind of lump dirty bombs together with nuclear bombs because they both use nuclear material, and technically it's right and technically it's not right. I guess some people argue that point. Dirty bombs are conventional weapons laced with radioactive material, and they're not very big. They don't cause a lot of damage, but they contaminate an area, and they don't contaminate a very large area. They're psychological devices more than anything else. So tactically, They're useless. Strategically, they have some use, trying to scare your enemy into not doing something. So the idea is, someone fires off a dirty bomb and it will weaken the resolve of the enemy. In this case, Russia will think that if dirty bombs are going off in Ukraine, it will weaken the will of Ukraine to fight. If Ukraine fires off a dirty bomb in the area, it will frighten the Russians off into wanting to avoid the area, because you got a lot of Russian soldiers in there who kind of don't want to be there. This isn't their war. This is not like World War II or a lot of the major wars where you had people rah-rahing for their country. Let's get in there. Let's stop Germany. Or World War I, let's stop Germany for patriotism. That's why people sign up. But people in the Russian army, you got some patriots in there, but most of them are conscripts, or they're just doing their military time, and they just want to get on with their lives, and they didn't want to be there, and they're not happy being there, and they want to get out of there. So there's not a whole lot of morale on Russia's side. So maybe a dirty bomb will actually frighten some of them into deserting. So it looks like Ukraine has got a better reason to use a dirty bomb than Russia does. So when Russia comes out and says, we have reason to believe that Ukraine is getting ready to have a dirty bomb, a lot of people dump on that, saying, well, that's just Russia, getting ready to use their own dirty bomb, because Russia often accuses the enemy of doing what Russia intends to do themselves, and that is true. Now, does Russia actually have proof that Ukraine wants to use a dirty bomb? We don't know. They haven't shown it. They said they've shown it to the Western states that they've made these reports to. We don't know that either. We don't know what they're saying. They could be just saying the exact same things they're telling publicly. We have reason to believe that Ukraine is ready to use a dirty bomb. They've assembled their rocket or whatever. That's what they're saying now. They're on the threshold. They're almost ready to do it. It could happen any day. We have no evidence. Russia has provided no evidence other than these vague threats. And again, the belief is Russia is just accusing Ukraine of what they're going to do themselves. But Russia has a legitimate point that Ukraine does have a reason to use one, and there is strategic reason to use one, to frighten off the Russian soldiers. Russian soldiers start hearing that dirty bombs are going off, they're going to want to be there even less. So, Ukraine has a pretty good reason to use one. Now, the argument against it is, Ukraine is not going to irradiate their own territory, and that's a really good reason. But Ukraine can also say, Russia fired it off. They're the ones who are doing it, and the West is going to believe them. Now, these dirty bombs have signatures, and there's going to be a lot of experts going in there to find out where the radioactive material came from. But there's a lot of holes in where these nuclear material can come from. We have the nuclear plant in Ukraine that's been taken over by Russia. There are a lot of holes in Russia's nuclear program, so it could have gone out. There also could be, there's conspiracy theory that the West could hand Ukraine some radioactive material in order to make this dirty bomb, in order to frame Russia. There's a lot of theories out there, and I'm not going to go into them. I'm not going to legitimize a lot of these theories, especially some of the way out ones. I'm just saying that they could fire, Russia or Ukraine could fire off a dirty bomb, and nobody really knows where it's come from. Or even if we know where it comes from, nobody's going to believe it, depending on where your political or national loyalty lies. If Russia fires off a dirty bomb, the Russian propaganda is going to say, we didn't do it, it was Ukraine, and the West is lying. If Ukraine fires off a dirty bomb, Ukraine is going to say, we didn't do it, Russia did it, and the West is going to believe them, because the West is on Russia's side. So, but what happens is that, did I digress a little bit? I hope I didn't digress. But what happened was, what caused us to go to DEFCON 3 is that there has been an increase in rhetoric between not just Russia, but the West, warning Russia not to use nuclear weapons. And what caught our attention was the amount of rhetoric coming from the West. Now, throughout the war, the West has always said, don't use nuclear weapons, don't use nuclear weapons, don't use nuclear weapons, there'll be consequences, yada, yada, yada. You want to know what, you don't want to know how many times they've done this? Well, just do a start page search or a DuckDuckGo search, because you don't want to use Google because Google tracks you. Go to DuckDuckGo or start page, and you can do a Google search without Google tracking you. So, but you do a search and you'll find out how many times. It's just it's almost become white noise now about how many times the West has warned Russia against using nuclear weapons. But something happened recently when Russia actually sent letters to Western states about this dirty bomb. The West started reacting more heavily toward Russian use of a nuclear bomb. And we also started seeing signs of the West taking steps when a dirty bomb or a nuclear bomb goes off. So what this led us to believe is that the West believes that Russia is going to fire off a nuclear device, dirty bomb or tactical, more than they are telling us publicly. And that caught our attention. And that's why we had to say, you know what? We don't believe that Russia is going to fire off a nuclear device. The staff talks about this stuff every day, the DEFCON staff, and the general consensus is it's not happening. But there was enough going on that made us say, although we don't believe it's going to happen, we're not sure enough that we don't want to say something. Over the last few weeks, we've been sending out messages to the Ukraine area saying, prepare for a nuclear event. Start getting supplies. You know, don't go quitting your jobs or running or barricading yourselves into shelters or interrupting your lives or anything like that. But at least start stocking up on emergency supplies. And this is a message that we've sent out several times because the situation is serious enough where we're not sure that Russia is not going to use a nuclear weapon. Interesting among the Western statements, and we actually put this out as well and kind of confused a lot of people the way it was phrased, but the way it was phrased was very deliberate because we wanted to make sure that what we were saying was accurate, because what the West is doing is kind of confusing itself. The Western governments have said that they have concluded that Russia has not made a decision to not use nuclear weapons. What that means is that the West believes that Russia may not have made a decision to use nuclear weapons, but they haven't taken nuclear weapons off the table. And when you analyze the Western statements, that is what they believe. They believe that Russia has not taken nuclear weapons off the table. No matter how many times the West says we see no signs of Russia, using nuclear weapons, we don't believe Russia is going to use a nuclear weapon or anything like that. What the West also believes is that Russia has not taken nuclear weapons off the table. And so that's going to influence what they're thinking and how they're going to react as well. So when you take all this into consideration, Russia has been going around claiming that Ukraine is going to use a nuclear weapon or a dirty device. Russia has a tendency to blame others or accuse others of what they are going to do. Russia is starting to establish some bomb shelters in Moscow. We don't actually put a lot of stock into that. That actually seems to be more of a public morale thing or public propaganda thing, because they're not making bomb shelters all over the place. They're not really preparing for anything. It's more for show or anything like that. But Russia making bomb shelters, Ukraine actually having a pretty good strategic reason to use a dirty bomb, even though Ukraine has invited the International Atomic Energy Agency over to inspect their sites to make sure they're not actually getting ready to use a dirty bomb. We're not saying that Ukraine is going to use one. We're saying they've got a strategic reason to use one, unlike Russia, which does not. But and statements by the West over Russia using a dirty bomb, movements by the West which appear to look like they're getting ready for Russia to use a nuclear bomb, all this, or dirty bomb, all this makes us say, with everything that's going on, we're not sure. And when things are not sure, that kind of moves us into the DEFCON 3 level. The situation is considered fluid. So it was incumbent upon us to warn, because that's our job. Our job is to warn. We're not looking forward to nuclear war. Most people on our staff will die in a nuclear war. Most people on our staff are in locations that are targets, are pretty close to a target. So nobody around here wants it. We're not looking forward to it. We don't think it's exciting. Our job is to warn, because we don't believe the government will make appropriate warnings in the event of a nuclear war or a nuclear attack. So that's our job. That's our goal. That's our only goal. We're just the guy. We're just the watchman on the wall. We're just ringing the bell, saying things are looking a little squirrely. Just in case, just prepare. If you prepare and nothing happens, great. You've got some supplies you can use for other stuff. You don't have to do your grocery shopping. You don't have to buy bathroom tissue. You don't have to do a lot of stuff for a lot of time. But if you don't prepare and something happens, what are you going to do? The shelves are already bare, the disaster has happened, and you're just in trouble. Look what happened to Hurricane Ian that just blew through Florida in the United States. These people have hurricanes all the time. Yet every single time a hurricane comes down, the store shelves are bare, people don't have supplies. Why? Because nobody prepares. So the idea of the DEFCON warning system is to say, something is coming, prepare now while there's still time to prepare. Because when we hit DEFCON 2 or DEFCON 1, there's not going to be time, because by that time, most people are going to start cluing in, hopefully, and the shelves are going to be bare. So we're at DEFCON 3 right now. If you're in the Ukraine theater, start thinking about preparing. Start gathering some stuff up. Like I said, I think this is going to blow over. The winter is coming. Nobody's going to be making any real movements in the winter. Russia's going to be stalled. Ukraine is going to be stalled. So this is all probably going to blow over in a few weeks. We're going to go back down to blue or maybe even green. And this is probably all just going to start up again in the spring. So we're not done with this yet. But for now, just hang tough for about 4 weeks or so. Prepare. Because although we don't think it's going to happen, there are enough signs among the governments to say, okay, maybe there's something going on. Probably not, but maybe. And when we're in the maybe section, that's when we go into the DEFCON 3, because, again, the situation is fluid. So that is our reasoning for why we went to DEFCON 3. Please read our updates. The reason was right there, but at least I was able to go a little bit more into it. Our updates are designed to be short, a fast read, 3 minutes tops, so we don't get into a whole lot of detail into that. So that's one of the nice things about these DEFCON digests, because then we're able to explain a little bit further about why we did what we did. Remember, we have a community forum where you can interact with the staff, and you can ask us questions there, and we're pretty good at answering stuff. Sometimes we don't because we're too busy. and there's other community members there. They'll also chime in. They're a good resource. We got emergency preparedness section there. You can get ideas on what you need to do to prepare for emergencies. So we have a lot of resources available to you. Please take advantage of them. Again, thank you for watching this. Thank you for putting up with my stammering, my lost wandering thoughts, and me not looking at the camera and things like that. The camera is actually above the screen, so I'm actually looking at a screen, so that's why I'm kind of not looking at the camera. But thank you again. We are going to have another Ask Me Anything in December, so we'll be doing another one of these DEFCON Digests in December where you can ask me whatever you want, and I will do my best to answer them. So get your questions ready. In the meantime, I'm Thomas Lonely Wolf, the director of the DEFCON Warning System. Thank you for tuning in.